the court system has magistrate judges and other officials, so we all must have some role to play in there, as we're supposed to have charge of the courts. I guess it depends on which sort of court you get charge of, I guess, in terms of what you get to do. But yeah, definitely interesting. And again, it's really great to see that these things are being affirmed and confirmed in different places with different people, and it's always encouraging, isn't it, when you get affirmation and encouragement that what you've seen and what you've experienced, other people are also getting similar stuff. It's always good to know you're not on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's great. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'll say open it up for anyone else who's got anything they want to share. It looks like Fiona's got a new picture of a cat with nice big eyes. So does anyone else want to share something or got any questions?
Hi, Mike. I'm kind of driving right now, so maybe once I get in my car, I'll share my experience with Anna last week. It's pretty cool.
Okay. Good. Okay. So, any other things anyone wants to share or to ask? I don't know if George is going to be around today. I know he sort of sometimes struggles to get in, but. Yeah, there he is. Hi, George.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Mike. Sorry to be late.
Okay, no problem. All right. Okay. Well, it's just open for questions, sharing, testimony, whatever. Feel free.
Going through a period of a lot of outside distractions, and I suppose I know that's normal. I've been in the ministry a long time, but I know there's probably some things that you've done to not get caught up in long periods of being separated dry, or at least not communicating like you do in other periods. I know a lot of it's family stuff or things you have to do physically, and you find yourself not tuning in, and it's almost like a muscle. You kind of lose that edge a little bit. You get some feedback and maybe some habits you've picked up over the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of daily life for me, I frame and I order. Because I've spent a lot of time doing that, I don't need to take a long time doing it every day, but I do bring order into my day, and therefore I have an expectation that I will be able to do everything that I'm called to do in any particular day, and therefore I rule, govern that, establish that, and then outwork it every day. Now, some days, I'm at home and I'm doing things, in the garden or whatever, and I'm perfectly free enjoying that, but in it, I'm always open for communication and talking with God during those periods. So I tend to have a conversational, open relationship with God where it can be communicating at any time in any place. But also I do have the specific quality time that I set aside every day, no matter what I'm doing, and that used to take me longer to establish that when I was first learning how to do it. Now it's much more of a lifestyle, and it's very easy for me to engage in different places and set the day up, if you like. So I tend not to get distracted too much, because I see everything as being ordered and framed. So I get a mandate, from God, and therefore I frame myself according to that mandate, and then I'm able to fulfill that mandate. If there are things which I need to overcome and deal with, I never remove those from my life. I mean, I could frame my life and frame it so that there's no problems or issues or whatever, but I don't, because actually I see there's great value in learning how to overcome, learning how to subdue. Our mandate from Genesis 1:28, is to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill, and to subdue and rule. So there's an expectation there that actually subduing is part of my life and what I learn to do, and then I learn to rule over those things that I subdue, put them under my feet, if you like. And so I never try and remove them, but I always make sure that, in a sense, I know that I have everything I need to overcome every obstacle, every problem, every situation, every entanglement. I know, because I frame my ability to do it. So I have full faith and expectation that no matter what happens today, I have whatever I need to be able to deal with that. Whether that be from the positive side of doing whatever I'm called to do, but also from the negative if the enemy's trying to obstruct that or cause problems in that. So I set my day, no matter what I'm doing. Even if I'm having a day off and I'm just enjoying some time at home, I frame my day to have a good day off and to be able to be blessed and fruitful in my day off, as much as I do in any day where I've got a lot of other things that I'm doing, like today, 2 or 3 hangouts and meetings and different things that I'm doing, engaging people. My spirit, because my spirit is continually in heaven, I'm never disconnected from the realm where everything is at a higher level of authority and available to me instantly. So I never face something that I have to say, oh, what do I do to figure that out? My spirit already has the answers, if you like, and releases them to me. So I take things in my flow, and in the flow of life, I expect life to flow out of heaven through me and out through me. And so at the beginning of my day, when I open my first love gate and I engage God, Father, Son, and Spirit, it's like they're set up as the bench of 3 in my spirit. And then I come into agreement with them, and 3 + 1 makes 4, and that opens a door or window to flow through me. And then I expand my spirit, being joined to the Lord, one spirit with him, around my spheres of influence and government, which would be family and work and church and different areas that I have governmental responsibility for. I expand my spirit outwards, and I create the space, Isaiah 54, expand your tent pegs so that, your curtain is wider. And I set that every day to the level that I have authority in, and that goes around my area, my region. And then there's somewhere for everything to flow into, rather than, well, I'm open my first love gate, but it's not going to go anywhere, so it stagnates. So I set up a flow in the beginning of my day. My spirit is continually in heaven and on the throne. I'm just cooperating in flowing from there out into the world, because I have that flow established. So I don't tend to get distracted, because I set the circumstances, I guess. But I very deliberately do that every day. And then I just outwork the day, from establishing it at the beginning, and the end I feel satisfied and fulfilled, and I go to sleep, frame my night to have rest, and my spirit then continues to function in heaven because I don't need to sleep in the spirit. So everything sort of comes that way. A lot of it is my mindset is I don't see anything as a distraction, but as an opportunity. Yeah, either to overcome or to rule, or to outwork everything that God's called me to do. So those are some of my sort of lifestyle things that keep me from ever feeling too busy, because I always have enough to do everything that I'm called to do. I have an expectation that I can contract and expand time to enable me to be able to do everything I'm called to do, which sometimes, from a natural perspective, isn't possible. But from a spiritual perspective, I ensure that it is possible. So, like today, I have a couple of hangouts. I had a physical meeting with a local bench of 3 this morning, and I have 2 messages I'm preparing for the weekend, because I'm doing a conference, an online conference in sort of with a glow in North Carolina, I think, and I had 2 messages to prepare. Well, in actual fact, if I look at the time that I've had available up till now, I've had probably 45 minutes where I wasn't doing anything exactly, but I've managed to actually prepare 2 messages in that, which would normally take me several hours each, and they're now pretty much ready. So I know that I was able to expand time to be able to actually, that 45 minutes was probably 2 or 3 hours in reality, even though from the physical time frame it was still 45 minutes, because my expectation in ruling is I have everything I need to do today. So that's sort of a mindset that I think I've learned to develop over the last few years. A few years ago, I would have been panicked. So I've got these 2 things coming up at the weekend. How am I going to do that? But I just feel totally at peace and rest, because I established peace and rest the beginning of my day, and then I just live in peace and rest for the rest of it. That's my key. So if we're in peace and rest at the beginning, then everything flows out of the peace and rest. If I don't actually establish the time with God to establish peace and rest, then I'm on my own, and then I've got to cope doing it without that place of peace and rest. So for me, that means that I discipline myself to give myself that time no matter what's going on, and therefore I get up earlier than everybody else at home to have space to actually frame my day from that perspective. And no matter what I'm doing, I always do that. Even if it's like a weekend and I'm not actually got any other sort of responsibilities, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll do that in the bed before I even get up. I'll just tune into that and begin to establish it. Now, when I was learning, it would take me, an hour and a half, 2 hours to do that. Now it probably takes me 30 minutes or less, and then the rest of the time I spend legislating and engaging God and hanging out with Him, doing things, listening, receiving revelation, lots of things. So more of my time is spent in outworking what I've established, whereas before I used to spend all the time learning how to establish things. Now things have changed, in shape for me. So I have engagement, and I love just hanging out with God. When He starts talking to me and sharing things and saying things, and I'm writing it down and journaling it, I just love that, because it becomes the framework for the future. Because God gives me revelation in some of those things that I've got no idea necessarily at the time what it's about, but my heart receives it, my spirit receives it, and then it will draw me back to it in the future whenever I need to. So I don't know if that helps, but yeah.
I notice it's interesting to see the evolution of revelation. While you're talking, I'm reflecting to I was involved in the faith movement, and the seeds of that were just never matured. I mean, I can see the beginning of all these exercises where where we did a lot of that in the area of confession or
Yeah.
declarations of who we are in Christ, and yet now we're connecting it to a broader picture and a more fuller revelation of we're in Christ, we're in heavenly places now, speaking out of heaven. So it's interesting to see how that how we were stunted, at least in going on past that beginning revelation.
Yeah, absolutely. I've received a lot of revelation from the faith movement, over years. I've been quite keen, in some of the faith movement teachers, in terms of the revelation, and it was part of my journey. I think I remember there was a bridge where, when I was, Kenneth Copeland and Kenneth Hagin and people like that, I found some of their things quite helpful in the same sort of things. Basically, establishing a faith without seeing, and I found that a good foundation. So I learned to make confessions and establish the Word of God in me. But in a sense, those people seem to have something that and outworked it in a different way, and I think they set up something that offered a formula without necessarily the full relationship and the government behind it. And I think a lot of people ended up, well, it seems to work for you, but I don't get all these testimonies of miracles and things happening for me. It's like it seems to happen for you, but not really sort of seeing that they lived in a different sphere, but it was very helpful stuff. But I think it never went beyond into, as you say, the heavenly perspective to it. Therefore, it was always trying to do it on the earth to try and get something to manifest out of heaven, but without actually being there and manifesting it. And I think that was the bit that was missing. They were absolutely right that all the spiritual blessings are available in the heavenly places, but we were trying to manifest them out of those spiritual places by confession, by calling them forth, by doing the positive confession stuff, without going there and engaging them and then releasing them. And I think that's what it didn't develop. And I remember, there's people like Charles Capps. I don't know if you heard Charles Capps. He did some books on that type of stuff. And then his daughter, I think it was Anna Capps or whoever her daughter was, she produced this booklet about quantum faith. And that was, I think, she caught hold of something different in seeing that this was actually understanding how to engage that realm by engaging in it from a quantum perspective, that this is a spiritual realm that actually manifests into this realm. And I found it was only a tiny little book, but it was very, very helpful. And I really saw, hey, here's a bridge, but I didn't actually see anyone in the faith movement pick it up. It's almost like people who are pursuing the stuff we're pursuing picked it up, and it was like, wow, yeah, this is really the bridge. And I don't see anyone in the faith movement seemingly pick it up. Not from anything that I've sort of see that them producing. They don't seem to be producing anything really much different from what they've been producing for years, because they don't seem to have gone beyond. But you're right.
The structure was set up and then begin to be maintained, and I saw the same things happening there that was happening in my young days, where we were Pentecostals and we had to maintain that, we had to defend it, and that's the human side of this experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
One thing I'm really enjoying drawing and rejoicing hearing you and some of the others is that, especially being with you so much, is that this isn't a private experience. You don't have to come to me to get it. You're expected to step into this on your own, or at least with some mentoring, but what you hear from God is what you hear from God. So that's really refreshing.
Yeah, and I think, again, that is the aspect where it's not dependent on the Moses who does it for us. It's all of us can do it, and I think that is really the defining difference between the old and the new. You know, we're not relying on the prophet to hear God for us. You know, we're not reliant on the apostle to get a vision so we follow. It's all about us hearing God for ourselves on a daily basis, you know, fulfilling that as children of God, sons of God, and outworking it in that way personally. Yeah, but with others, you know, not independent, but in relationship with others as living stones, but each of us being the living stone that we are, rather than the shape that other people want us to be. And, you know, the people don't determine the shape that we are, God does, and then he fits us together in the right place where we fit, you know, where we were always designed to fit. Well, so many other environments, people start chiseling away at us, trying to make us fit their vision and their thing, rather than us actually being who God created us to be, and there will be a place that we fit in. And, you know, that's really why, as foundational servant-hearted leaders, you're always lifting up people to engage God for themselves so that they find who they are and their identity, and then they'll feel, hey, I fit in this. This is who I was always meant to be. You know, rather than, well, here's a vision, I have to fit in with someone else's vision, and, you know, they want me to do this, so I better serve them, and I better fit in and try and do that because that's what they want, and they're the people who are saying, you know, what it is that God is wanting us to do, therefore we're just following, you know. Whereas, you know, leaders are not actually trying to get people to follow them, they're trying to get people to follow Jesus. You know, we're having continually to point people, just like Jesus did with the Father. You know, it's like, you know, I'm the way to the Father, and the Holy Spirit did with Jesus, pointed people to him, and so Jesus could point them to the Father. It was all about pointing them to God themselves, rather than, you know, well, you know, yes, I have some testimony that I can help, but what I'm helping you do is hear God for yourself, not actually follow me. You know, because, you know, if you follow me, you're going to only end up where I'm supposed to be. You know, and that's not where you're supposed to be. You know, you've got to follow the path where you're supposed to be, not where I am. You know, all I'm there to is trying to help you find the path and follow it. You know, to where you will find you're outworking and fulfilling, you know, your destiny in the way you're supposed to fulfill it and outwork it. You know, the important thing is to be in the right place. You know, that's the key in all these things, to be in the place you're supposed to be, whether that's a place for a season or whether that's a place, you know, because when Jacob, you know, had this amazing encounter with Bethel and an open heaven and angels going up and down, and, you know, this revelation that this was the house of God and the gateway of heaven, you know, he was later told to live there, and actually decided not to live there, but to go and live somewhere else because it wasn't convenient, because he was a herdsman and Bethel was not a place to keep herds. But rather than selling his herds and going, I don't know, becoming a quarryman or something, or something else as God would lead, he went to another place. And if you look at his life afterwards and his family life, it was a disaster, because they should have been living under an open heaven with a whole angelic armies around them, and they went to live where they were completely exposed. And then you had, you know, the things that happened in his family and a disaster, and ended up in Egypt. See, I don't believe they should have ended up in Egypt. You know, they only ended up in Egypt because they left Bethel. If they stayed in Bethel, they would have occupied the promised land and have expanded and have filled it from there. You know, not having to wait 430 years while it's occupied by the enemy, then they had to go and try and dispossess it. You know, that God's purpose for them was to live in Bethel. You know, and that would have been a totally different environment, and the whole story would have been different. But of course, God knew what they were going to do, but that was his best. You know, Egypt was not his best. Joseph, and, you know, was not his best. That was his, I'm trying to bring good out of a bad decision. You know, and that's what God does all the time. I'm trying to bring good out of our bad decisions. But sometimes there are consequences to our bad decisions, which we have to, deal with. But God is always desiring to bring some good out of it. So, yeah. Okay. Anyone else want to share something? Or?
I'll share something, Mike.
Okay, great.
Last week before the conference we had this weekend, we went. I was with Anna and Kristen, and we went in and legislated for the event, and I'm pretty much tagging along with them. And we ended up going to the Court of the Kings and the I think it's Court of the Chancellors.
Chancellors, yeah.
Yes, and the event was to basically honor the guests that were coming and to kind of legislate what we had experienced. I had seen myself immediately when we said to prepare for them to come. I saw myself rolling out a red carpet and kind of rolling it up these stairs, and I saw these two thrones, and I didn't say anything about the two thrones because that was kind of too far out for me at the time when I saw it. And then sprinkling gold dust on the carpet, and then Anna about 5 minutes later said, "Oh, and there's two thrones." So once we kind of got this picture of what the Lord wanted to do, as far as our connection with receiving the guest speakers, we went into these two places. Well, when we went into the Court of the Kings, I heard these, I knew that there were these trumpets going off, or almost like coronation type sound trumpets.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
What's that?
Heralding. Yeah, they're like
Heralding.
trumpets.
Yeah. And I couldn't really see anything else. I just sensed that, and then when they said what they were engaging with, I sensed that I was participating, or at least there with them. And then we went into the Court of the Chancellors. I actually texted the gals after and said, can you see yourself in the floor? Because I saw my reflection. It's like I could see not completely, but it's like I could see like it was a mirror almost, the floor, and I didn't notice anything else. And so later on I talked to them, and Anna kind of verified it, and she said, yeah, people say that it's very, very polished. So, I've heard that, once you've engaged with something, you can go back but that's kind of where I have the real issue. It's like I have these experiences, I start getting something, but it's almost like by myself, I'm not able to push past it and get back. And I don't know if it's because of the way that I'm wired, but there is some frustration there. So
yeah.
But I do spend time engaging with the Lord in my heart, again through communion, and continue to develop that intimacy. But it seems like engaging in what is necessary, that's where the limitations are. So I'll listen.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's great that you're sort of encountering those things. I mean, it's good confirmation. You saw things, other people saw them. So it's obviously not to do with the fact that you cannot engage. You obviously can. It's actually coming back to your own personal relationship in it. Obviously, this was a joint mandate. So you had a joint authority to go there, which is different from personal authority. It's like I can't just jump into the Court of Kings anytime because it's somewhere I've been before. I have to be mandated to be able to get back or go into those places. No, if I get a mandate, I can go. but it's actually knowing that I'm coming from a place of peace and rest in the mandate that then authorizes me to engage. And I think in this for yourself, there's nothing wrong in developing the relational side of it, to continue to develop the intimacy. You know, that's for me is a key, you know, to have that communion and fellowship with God, become discerning. But I would then look to take it in simple steps. You know, it's almost like, don't try and jump from, well, I'm engaging in my own heart, to, well, I'm going to the court of kings. Actually, what's the next step? Well, just continue to see that, well, there's a door standing open in heaven. I'm just going to go and present myself as a living sacrifice and ask him to prepare me for whatever there is for the rest of my day, or for the more of the responsibility side of it, because there's still preparation to take place in being a living sacrifice and being open for God. When you present yourself to Jesus as our high priest, he prepares the sacrifice. So I'm dealing with my mindsets, I'm dealing with my attitudes in that. For me, when I went through those pathways, you know, I couldn't just jump anywhere when I was developing the pathway. I followed the pathway faithfully to the ark, and I then, once I'd faithfully developed that pathway to the ark, and it would take me sometimes 45 minutes and an hour to get to the ark, and then I'd spend 5 minutes in there in a quick, well, I want to resonate with your will today, show me, and then I'm going to go and work it. Now I spend 5 minutes on the pathway to get to the ark, and I spend 45 minutes in there actually sort of legislating and engaging and getting mandates and stepping into the four faces of God. But the pathway was developed over a long disciplined period, if you like, to enable me to then, by thought, engage in that thing. But because I'm living in dual realms, not stepping in and out, then of course I'm active in there all the time. But I like to learn how to do that. So it's very obvious that you're wired up to see, because you can see in this environment when you're going corporately. It's just, I think you're probably setting some almost like goals, or almost a striving to do it, because it's well, I should be able to do it, and I think you're sort of almost stressing yourself trying to do it rather than just relaxing and presenting yourself. You know, because that presenting yourself is the pathway that gets to the ark. You know, I don't just jump into these sort of places without having established the pathway, and therefore I can walk on it and engage it, you know, now, because it's, you know, 5 or 6 years down the line. But for the first 2 to 3 years, I diligently every day developed the pathway, and that was my place of restriction, if you like, that I was in the chrysalis being prepared by the fire of God's presence to then come out of that into a butterfly who can fly to anywhere. It was a 2 or 3 year period where I was pretty restricted in what I was doing and developing it, and I went through that process. Like, you know, you think of Joseph, and Joseph went through he had this amazing vision dream, you know, I'm going to be ruling and people are going to be bowing down to me, and then he went through the restriction of the pit, and then the slave traders, and then into a stewardship role, and then he was falsely accused, and then he goes into prison, and, you know, then he gets forgotten in prison, you know, until he's eventually brought out onto the world stage. But he learned through all those processes. And I think sometimes we're not able to fly because we've not, in a sense, come out of the chrysalis yet, or actually in the process of coming out of the chrysalis, it's a struggle. You know, and if you try and help the butterfly out of the chrysalis or the cocoon, it can't fly. You've got to let it force its way out of the structure, which is a hard structure around it, until it breaks it open, and in a sense the wings get strong because of the struggle forcing the blood caterpillars into it. You know, so it is a ongoing process. It's a shame he's dropped off there now, but you know, hopefully he'll pop back in a minute. Yeah. So has anyone else got anything else while we see if Mike's coming back?
I'm driving, so I'm gonna keep it really short.
Okay.
I feel like the Lord's been teaching me how to be moved by His Spirit and not by needs, because there's a lot of things going at my church right now, and He said that I should be moved not according to what's going on in the natural, but I should be led by His Spirit to see what He wants to do, not what people want me to do. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's ultimately that's the key to being free. You only do what you see the Father doing. You're not pressured by others' expectations, you know, by even your own soul expectations of, you know, doing things for some sort of reward or whatever it might be. You know, you're not subject to the fear of man. You're just going to be flowing and therefore free. You know, free to say no as much as free to say yes when you see what the Father's doing. You know, and that is it's not an easy place, particularly when you're in an environment with all sorts of people around you who don't necessarily function like that and actually want to use you to do things for them, or want to use your gifts, or want to use your abilities to help further what they're doing. And that's what most church systems are like. People are there furthering the corporate at the expense of the individual. Rather than actually encouraging the individual, then all the corporate will benefit when we're all operating individually as God has called us to do. So yeah, I can see that.
But it's a little counterintuitive for me, because I feel like when there are needs, I should be panicking or I should do something. But, you know, it's just learning how to be attentive to what God is saying instead of responding to what people want me to do. It's an area that I'm still learning at this point.
Yeah, it is, because you'll be surrounded by people who, in effect, put you in an environment where there's pressure on to fulfill other people's expectations. And even, you know, in a sense, as you say, you may have, depending on what your redemptive gift is, if it's a mercy gift or a serving gift, and then your identity can be coming from that. Therefore, when you don't do it, you feel, your soul feels limited. Well, in reality, your identity comes from your spirit and who you are, and that frees you to only do what you need to do and not be constrained by others or in any way, even your own soul. It's like, you know, I'm moved by compassion when my spirit responds to God's love and compassion. I'm not moved by my soul compassion. You know, I can be moved to do something because, oh, that's terrible, you should do something. Well, I've learned to actually ask. You know, sometimes it's like I just know and I can respond. Sometimes it's like I ask, do you want me to do something about that? For instance, I mean, we've had these, you had these fires in Canada in terms of some of these raging wildfires and stuff. And I know people up in the Canada area. I know people in that Manitoba, was it Manitoba area, I think, or Alberta area, which one? Alberta, I think. And I'm like, well, should I do something? You know, because I'm looked at it and think, flip, this needs to stop. Obviously, you know, a lot of people's lives are being put at risk and all that stuff. And I said, should I do something? And God said, no, other people, I'm teaching other people to do something. So I'm like, oh, okay, great. And then I hear, you know, testimony sent, oh, we did a court case about this and we did that and we saw this. And I think, praise God. You know, so, you know, sometimes I ask because I just want to make sure that, you know, because I can do things, I'm available. But generally, you know, a lot of the times I don't even ask because I know that I'm not supposed to do something in that. But sometimes my soul will stir me, and it's just like, oh, look, that's a really difficult situation. You know, you can do something about that. But I don't just go and do something. When I get stirred like that, I go and ask and I find out. And I've done that over a number of different things in that type of thing, because God is teaching all sorts of sons around the earth to respond, and to outwork their sonship. And so I don't want to be doing stuff that other people are called to do and learn how to do. So, but it can be a pressure, and I can understand. If you're used to doing that and you're wired to do that, then to say no, your soul can react until your soul, is surrendered to only do what the Spirit leads, rather than what it's been used to doing, and used to, in a sense, getting identity and validation from what you're doing. And it's just really where the motive comes from. And the soul is in process, and we're in that process of having that transformed, so that it's easier to engage the Spirit, because the soul is just in surrendered agreement. So anyway, that's good. Yeah.
Is there any way I could do it to precipitate the process to make it easier on my soul?
Yeah. I mean, if you listen to the teaching I did on Sunday, which is online at the moment until next, well, it'll be online for a couple of weeks, because we've not got a meeting next week. We've got a joint churches together meeting in the area next Sunday. You'll find I actually talked about this whole area. And the next time I'm going to share about the dark cloud experience, which was the consummation of that process, because being in the soaking room puts the soul into a place of restriction, where it gets engaged with. Last week I shared about the living waters of life and a river of living water, and how that can soak us and marinate us, if you like, in change in our soul, but also you engage the fire. And the fire in the crucible or the cocoon brings change and transformation, and you can certainly surrender to that process. So there's a whole message on that, and in a sense, the Engaging God program really is about helping people from scratch go through the process of training their senses, engaging their gateways, cleansing them, coming to that place of surrender. The whole thing's about that, really, until you get to the point of you need to engage the responsibility of sonship. But it all has to flow out of that, and the soul coming to basically a point where it's surrendered, yielded, denying yourself, take up the cross and following on a daily basis. And it is a daily choice, because you have free will, and so you have free will which pathway you're going to choose every day. But once the soul is leaded, sort of surrendered and yielded, it doesn't have a problem choosing the right path. It just hasn't had history of choosing the right path, because we've been brought up with the soul in charge and drawing from the outside in. Now the soul needs to look from the inside out and learn to come from a different flow. And once it's in a place of that, hey, that's good, that feels good, it actually is good, then the soul yields and surrenders. But to get to that point, there's sometimes has to be some restriction and heat. Carbon in the form of coal can end up, in terms of carbon in the form of a diamond, but it takes quite a lot of heat and pressure to turn one into the other. And that's the process that often our soul needs to go through to bring us to that place. And there are steps to it, in my journey anyway, that I learned to embrace along the way.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? We've got a few minutes left.
Grant Mahoney's in the Northwest, and he's about 7 hours from me right now, and I'm trying to hear the Spirit tell me if I should go or not. I want to go, and I could make it now if I took off pretty soon, but that has nothing to do with the heavenlies right now, except I need to get a definitive word. I don't know if it's my soul or my spirit, but he's down at Kristen's today and tomorrow, and I've been invited to be a part of that group. So I'm kind of tossed whether I should make the run.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think he was out with Henry at the weekend, so it's obviously up in that area. Henry had a really good time. He shared some testimony of that earlier. Some things that went on. So, the end day in these sorts of things, it's like I tend to go on, have I got peace about it? And if I'm wandering, then I think I haven't.
Yeah.
Me, I either know or I don't know, and if I don't know, I don't go. So, I have that sense of, oh yeah, I'm at peace. I know, even if it's awkward or whatever, I know, yeah. Rather than, well, that would be good, and this would be a good thing, but if I'm thinking about the fact that it takes the time to get there and it's a hassle, then I'd probably not led to go. That's how I tend to engage these sorts of things when I get a decision I have to make quickly, like that. If I'm at two minds, then I feel actually I'm two minds, so I'm not at peace. So I tend not to come out of something where I'm not very clear. So when I'm clear, I always say yes quickly, but when it isn't clear, then I take it that if God really wanted to make it clear, he would. And I wouldn't feel, I would feel at peace about anything when there's a clarity that's come from God in it. Yeah.
So thank you. Sounds good.
Okay.
So, Mike, I keep running into problems. I didn't hear you the last part of your answer, but I'll listen to it when I rewatch it.
I was just talking about the butterfly, really.
Oh yes.
The butterfly coming out of the chrysalis. There is a struggle, and it's the struggle of flexing the wings and moving the wings that actually gets blood through the capillaries of the wings that actually empowers the wings to fly. So sometimes it is a struggle to come into a new place, and you don't want to shortcut the process because it will never be in a position of maturity to engage it, and you don't want anyone else to try and help you out either, because if you try and help a butterfly out of a chrysalis, it never flies. So it might sound difficult, but there is a process, and the chrysalis type thing of coming out of that into something else, is one of a need to go through it, But I know you're obviously moving forward in these things, because I can see, your testimony and the fact that you're, engaging in things which before you weren't, is an indication that you're on that journey, and that journey is moving you forward.
Well, you were talking about the ark.
Yeah.
I spend most of my time there when I engage in the heavenlies. I mean, I know it sounds weird, but even when we were worshiping, I at the event, I was dancing around it. I was even like flagging around it, and so in a way that it almost feels like not sacrilegious, but it's the ark, And but
David did it.
I know, and it just seems like, and I don't know if it was the next step for me from communion was the ark. I mean, I keep getting revelation when I go before it, and it's about the ark. It's about what it represents and the mercy seat and all those things. And so obviously it's a journey, and the Lord knows why I'm on this journey. But to me, they seem like little baby steps.
I don't think so. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who can't engage the ark, And the fact that you're there, you're receiving the revelation that you need to go further.
Right.
Because you're getting that revelation yourself, rather than, oh, well, I'll listen to Mike teach about the ark and then it'll be okay. You're getting the revelation that you'll need to teach other people, because it's your revelation and it's fresh for you. You know, I never danced around the ark. What I did is look in it to start with. What's in the ark? Oh, there's manna. What's the manna? Oh, that's the will of God. I need to take that manna. That will sustain me in doing the will of God today. So my journey was one, you know, and I got stuck there for 2 years. Every day getting manna, which was great. Getting what God wanted me to do, which was great, but actually outworking it on the earth, which was not so great. But it wasn't until I got to come out of the chrysalis and then into that change that then I was able to engage. Well, God's presence is here, and I can engage in His presence rather than just engage what's in the ark, you know. But in the ark was great; it opened up that realm, but then it went deeper and deeper and deeper on my journey. But I was stuck at that place for a couple of years, not going any further until the time was right when I was able to. So you are, I mean, the fact that you're engaging it and you're getting revelation is absolutely what you should be getting. And it's your revelation, which is great, because that gives you authority when you bring it, because it's your testimony that you can relate to others about when it comes to, well, what is this stuff about the ark? What happens there? Well, I dance around the ark, and when I dance around the ark, God's thoughts dance around me, and I get revelation. You know, it's like, hey, that's a really good, in a sense, testimony for others to relate to.
So how long do I carry something before I start sharing it? You know, as pastors, we get...
yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, I share something when it's part of my lifestyle. So if I'd been dancing around, like I shared engaging the ark for revelation about the will of God and the manna and the tablets and the Aaron's rod, I shared that well before I went on to anything else. That was my experience, and I was living that experience, you know, and I could engage that. Therefore, I shared it. You know, I didn't share then going any deeper until I was then able to do that every day, and that was part of my lifestyle. Then I shared going deeper. Then I shared going deeper again in terms of stepping into the four faces of God rather than just engaging it, because they were all steps on my journey. You know, it didn't occur to me I could step into the four faces. I just spent time engaging the faces, generally just one face to start with, and then more faces until God got me to engage the last face, which was the man, and that was the key face to stepping in, because I could go in a priestly role into the presence of God, and therefore the whole thing opened up into eternity and everything else. But they were all steps of my journey, and I got stuck in various places for a while until the time came to open up that revelation. And some of that was purely God opening it up because I'm there, available. I didn't know the revelation, so it's not that I thought, well, I'm going to learn how to do this, and there's no one else had that revelation that I knew, and no one else was teaching it. So, you know, it wasn't, you know, you can go and listen to Ian Clayton, but he won't teach you specifics about what you do when you're there. He's just giving you, again, general things. Hey, there's an ark, and you can engage it. So I had to learn myself. Well, you're learning yourself, which gives you authority when you share it. But I would say you're in a position of sharing it now, because you are experiencing it now.
Yeah. I haven't heard any of this from anybody that I'm getting.
No. Well, that's in a sense the key. You know, it's your revelation. You're receiving it. This is your experience where you're receiving it, and certainly you can then begin to share that, because it will inspire those that are around you, because you're receiving this. It's not just, oh, well, so-and-so somewhere else in the world is receiving this. No, actually, I am. This is my experience. So I think, you know, I think you're too hard on yourself in, you know, well, these are baby steps. They aren't baby steps. You know, of all the Christians in the world, you're probably in the 0.1% that's engaging the ark right now. You know, that's not a baby step. That's a significant step on your journey. You know, enjoy it, and continue. And then as you give it away, God will give you more. You know, it's always about freely we've received, freely give. And until we start giving it away, then often more doesn't come. Yeah, but more will come because you'll start giving it away, and then you'll go deeper into it, and there'll be more revelation because you now know how to get revelation around the ark for you, how it works for you. You know, and that's the key. It's not how it works for me. It's how it works for you, because I'm opening the principle that you can go. You need to find it for yourself, and you are, which is great. You know, and that is a significant thing, because now you have a powerful testimony of how this works for you. You know, whether it be visual or impressions or knowing, you know what you're receiving is revelation while you're there, and that's the important thing, which is great. Be encouraged.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. You know, because I love testimony. You know, I love people's testimony of their things and what they're doing, and you know, because it's always an encouragement to hear the different ways that God engages with different people for them. That's their testimony, and this is now your testimony that now you have the authority to begin to share, because it gives you authority, because now it's your personal experience, you know, so which is great. Anyway, awesome. Okay, all right, I better leave it